Hello and welcome to Python Fundamentals. In this course, we learn the underpinning Python programming skills, preparing for our journey towards mastering the Django Framework and the Python programming language. This tutorial is part of a series of tutorials. You can find the link to the whole playlist in the video description. This tutorial is from our Python Programming Fundamentals for Django Developers course, which you can find and purchase on Udemy. You will find all the latest and updated tutorials, as well as resources and assessments to help accelerate your learning of the subject. The link to the course, which will always provide the best price, can be found in the video description. Although we aren't necessarily running through multiple examples showcasing the different techniques or features of the if statement, we are building up all the different patterns, all the different approaches to solve problems. Again, it comes down to solving problems. All the techniques we've seen so far, whether you need to use just a simple if conditional statement, whether you need to utilize the else component or the else if component, or whether you indeed need to combine conditions. These are all solutions to potential problems that you need to resolve in order to develop your application or the workflow of your application. As an exercise, maybe just write down, make some notes regarding all the skills that we've learned, all the different combinations, and think about a problem and solution approach. So on the left hand side we have a problem, and on the right hand side we're going to write the solution. Now, we know what the solution is. For example, the first solution would be to create an if statement. So what might be a problem for that solution, for us to actually implement that solution? And then move down to the next. So next we learned, for example, the else condition. So on the right hand side, the solution would be to use an else condition. What might be the problem? So only as an idea, of course, but thinking that way, when we are approaching developing our application, we're thinking more about the problem solution approach, and we may have a better idea of how to implement our if statement, approaching and working in that manner. I think one of the issues with learning a language to begin with is that, yes, you might run through multiple examples of, for example, how to use an if statement. But it's never the same when you actually then start to build your application, because initially what you try to do is you look at the examples that you covered. Now, if the examples that you've already covered and learned aren't exactly the same as what you want to achieve, that's where the problem occurs potentially, because you haven't necessarily thought more logically about the problem solution approach. You've simply potentially learnt from an example, but the underlying principles of it haven't been learnt. And that is, in my opinion at least, thinking about this problem solution approach. So what is the problem that we're trying to resolve with an if statement? What is the problem we're trying to resolve with an else if and an else condition, for example? So let's now explore the nested if statement. As the name suggests, we can use an if statement within an if statement. Again, this is going to provide us different tools for us to be able to resolve certain problems that you need to resolve, or provide us certain types of logic within our application that we can utilize in order for our application to perform as intended. This is the example we were using before, so let's use numbers or integers. So if, for example, if x is more than 50, for example, we're going to run this block here. Right, so x is definitely more than 50, so it's 100 at the moment. So we're going to run this block. Now, it may be that we want to then perform additional checks. So, for example, if, let's go ahead, if x then is now more than 90, let's go for more than 90, maybe we want to print that is too high, for example. Okay, so let's give this a go. So we can see here that the original number here in this variable is 100. We obviously run this expression. I say obviously, we run this expression here. This returns true. So therefore we return, or we enter into the true block. So I have used the indentation here. So we can see that we created a new if statement here. Now, because it's a new if statement, I am going to need more indentation. So be careful to make sure that anytime we use a new if statement, we indent correctly. So here we have 4 more spaces. And inside of here, we have the true block. So we have a true block inside the first if statement here, and then the true block here in the second statement that we've created. So we can make this, we can create more if we wanted to. So if x is more than, for example, 95, then we can perform another statement here. So it is rather unlimited to the amount of nested statements that we can create. Now, as we create more nested if statements, the application does become more complex, and then it's much harder to actually track the application. So that is definitely something to consider if you are utilizing multiple if statements in this way. But this adds a different dimension to utilizing the if statement and building different type of logical workflows within your application.